I got married in July of 1977, long time ago. The week before we got married was full of very interesting events. My wife totaled her father's brand new Chrysler Cordoba. He loved that car and she was safe, but that was one interesting event. The week I was staying with my fiance's family when my grandparents got poisoned. In their cottage, they had an old propane refrigerator they're going to get rid of that summer, but it leaked, killed my grandfather, poisoned my grandmother. I received a call from my mother, who was in the state that I'm talking about right now. She said, "You just stay put for a week, and we'll take care of everything, and we'll be down for the wedding next week." And so we all went into denial, shock and denial. You see, I was getting married. The feelings of grief for the loss of my grandfather and the illness of my grandmother were incompatible with getting married. So I shelved it. I think of the mind as having drawers. The top drawer, recency and primacy, easy to find memories. Firsts, you can remember the first telephone number you ever remembered, and last was the last thing you had to eat. They're in the top drawer. You go to the bottom drawer, the third drawer, and it's a mess. All kinds of things thrown around. The second drawer just needs a little assistance. Where were you on June 2nd, 1985? If you were alive then, open the family photo album, boom, you're there. But the bottom drawer is a mess. So we throw stuff in the bottom drawer. Boom, can't deal with it now, we'll deal with it later. So all the grief that I felt for my grandparents' dilemma and passing was shelved. I got married. Becky and I moved to Mount Pleasant, Michigan, where I entered Central Michigan University. And I got my own therapist as part of my own coping with life. And in one session, we opened the grandfather folder and out came all the feelings, all the grief, and I was able to grieve a number of months later. Shock and denial are useful if it's not time to deal with whatever it is we're grieving. When you're dealing with a critical incident, when we were in New York, they made the mistake after 9/11 of pulling line workers, policemen and paramedics offline and making them debrief, which opened up all their feelings, and many of them got sick and couldn't return to work. Shock and denial is effective when it's not time to deal with what's being dealt with. Now, in our current situation, shock and denial is, I can't believe this is happening. Denial is, I'm going to be fine. This is going to last 2 weeks. I'm going to go down to the beach, and so forth. You get the idea. So it is at times protective, and if a person needs to remain in shock and denial, we don't try to move them out. But at some point, we need to process our feelings, which I'll talk about in future posts, how to deal with the sorrow or anger or bargaining that follows shock and denial on the way to acceptance. So it's a normal thing. We all feel it sometimes. After my mother died in 2001, it was like every morning I would wake up and realize, oh, my mother's died, as if I'd slipped into a disconnection from that. In fact, I remember distinctly shaving and looking in the mirror saying, your mother's dead, as if it was a new thought. So it's a normal process. There's nothing to be concerned about. If people, though, are making bad decisions because of their shock and denial, then we need to help them deal with reality. And that's why, governmental officials are saying you can't do this, you can't do that, because people are slipping into this. It's unavoidable. It's going to happen. And that's where we need each other. I need people telling me, Paul, I think you're in denial about this. You really need some help with this. Sometimes denial shoves things so far away that for years we won't deal with it. I was in a group with a group of men, and when I was going through midlife, we got together and we just kind of encouraged each other through it. And one day, one of the men was talking about how when he was young, he had been in the Catholic Church. He was an altar boy, and the priest would invite the boys in to shower together. And he described some things, and he was perfectly calm and just telling the story as if it was an everyday occurrence. And one of the men turned to him and said, you realize this was abuse. Boom, the curtain parted. He dropped his eyes to his shoes and said, I'm so ashamed. I'm so ashamed. I can't even look at you guys. And then we supported him as he worked through that experience. We deal with this all the time in psychotherapy, where people have suppressed or repressed, but more often disconnected the story from the facts. And so the best way to work through shock and denial is in supportive environments, with caring people. Today I shared a couple of stories of normal denial that occurs as we're trying to defend ourselves. The story about my friend who denied the abuse component, that helped him just live his life until it was time to bring it out, clean it up. He actually then he sought out that priest and confronted him, and did not receive much satisfaction in the priest's response, but he felt he did what he needed to do to put that chapter of his life back into an adult perspective, and now set it aside intentionally so it didn't affect him day by day. So the problem with shock and denial is things may keep busting through until you deal with it, but it is a protective element when it's not time. So we'll talk to you soon. I hope you help each other cope with this element of shock and denial. Don't be judgmental, and don't even bring somebody out of it if it's not bothering anybody. But in time, it all needs to be dealt with. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.